I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, members of the agency, the community. I want to thank the support, PBA, the FOP, the firefighters, the realtors. You know, we are fighting as one. You can see it out here because of all the members of the agency being here. I appreciate it. You know, one of the things we implemented in touchless policing was we weren't sure of the success right away. We wanted people to come out and tell us the crime. So we thought crime would go up. In reality, it didn't. Crime decreased by 9%. Our clearance rates are up. We averaged 200 more inmates in jail than we did 6 months ago. We're the second highest reduction in index crime in the Tampa Bay region. It's because of all you. Our attrition rate is the same as a lot of people in the area. We're at the national average. The saddest part is when somebody leaves because they need more money for their family. That's the one thing we will be fighting for, because our members deserve it. The Sheriff's Office is doing a great job, and it's because of the members here. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bogart, a minute.
Your Sheriff's Office has an $86 million budget, approximately 1,300 employees, and is responsible for the safety of nearly 500,000 people. That is an enormous responsibility. You were denied the opportunity to vote for who would be your who would be your sheriff. Governor Scott appointed my opponent over 8 seasoned law enforcement veterans. He chose one of the least experienced, but the most politically connected applicant. According to my opponent's Sheriff's Office job application, before he came to Pasco County, he had 9 jobs in 11 years, most of them which were for less than 8 months. His rank was never more than a patrol officer in any sworn law enforcement position. That speaks volumes about his levels of experience and commitment. I have 31 years of law enforcement experience and have held command positions in both law enforcement and corrections. Consider this: if you were on a plane and the engine failed, do you want the pilot with the most or the least experience to be flying that plane?
Thank you, Mr. Bogart. Princess Kate. Somebody can't follow instructions, right?
We'll not have that. All right.
Okay, I'll start with you, Sheriff Nocco. Good evening. Your opponent just mentioned in his introduction that he says you are the least experienced but the most politically connected. It is true, you have ties to Tallahassee. You've not hidden that fact whatsoever. Can you talk to us about how those connections in your mind will make you a stronger sheriff than if you didn't have them?
Yes. You know, people want to see a proven track record. They want to see, can you do the job? Well, I think in the past year and a half, I've proven that. Working as a team, we've done that. You know, do connections in Tallahassee help Pasco Sheriff's Office today? Absolutely. You know, we were able to raise, with the Senate help, over $1 million for a child protection investigation unit. Our children deserve the same amount of money as a child does in Pinellas and Hillsborough. They got that because I had the ability to call somebody up and say, hey, can you help us out with this? That's a good thing. Fighting the drug epidemic in Pasco County, we raised another $1 million for Pasco. It's because of our ability to network. I think it's a good thing. Other counties have that ability. Why shouldn't Pasco?
A rebuttal?
Yes. What the incumbent implies is that our legislators won't fight as hard for someone from a different party or someone who is not one of their friends in order to give support to Pasco County. He hasn't been here long enough to remember John Long and know the grants and the other things that he did to help benefit our county. I think that it's important to have relationships with politicians and certainly be able to apply for grants and to apply for legislative support and changing laws and things like that. But my concern is the politics within the Sheriff's Office.
A rebuttal?
You can talk about politics within the Sheriff's Office and it's not there. Look at past administrations, it was plagued by it. Ask our members today, they wouldn't be here if there's politics. They wouldn't be here if morale was low. So I think our connections with Tallahassee have proven that Pasco County is going to be a leader, and we're only going to get better.
He says that the politics aren't here and that the employees are happy. And in the 14 months of the first 14 months of his administration, there were over 40 deputies, corrections deputies and law enforcement deputies who left the sheriff's office. I think that's an indicator that not everybody's as happy as he would like you to think.
Mr. Bogart, question to you. You frequently describe the depth of your commitment to Pasco County as expressed in how long you've lived and served the community here. And that is admirable, but it also suggests that you think that Sheriff Nocco will pull up roots at the first chance. He says otherwise. What is your evidence that Sheriff Nocco will in the future be blown by the winds of opportunity?
Well, he's made a statement to the effect that if he sees an opportunity, he'll take advantage of it. I think his job history shows that he's never laid down roots for very long in any one location. I don't know what's on his mind, but I think that if you look at my track record and my commitment to Pasco County, you'll see that I've been here a long time and I'm very committed to my profession, and there's just tons of evidence to show that.
Sheriff Nocco.
My life has been guided by my faith. And if God opened us the door, He did it for a reason. You know, one of the reasons why we're in Pasco County is because we chose to be here. We have small children, they're in school here. Every time in life you have the opportunity to make something better and be a part of something bigger than yourself, that's what I intend to do. You know, I appreciate that this is coming down to personalities, but it's really about the agency. It's really about the results. You know, the results that we're reducing crime, the results that we are making a difference by uniting the community, that's what it's about. And for me, this is home. I love the fact that I can go out there with our deputies. I love the fact that we are building a community much stronger than it was yesterday. And I'm not leaving, even though other people would like to imply it. They probably would rather me do that.
Mr. Bogart, 30 seconds.
The sheriff keeps talking about results and how crime rate is down, and we're making more arrests. There's 200 people more in jail than there were X amount of months ago. The daily inmate population for the jail is only 44. The average daily inmate population for 2012 is only 44 more inmates than the average in 2011. The crime rate, it claims, is down. It's down in Florida. It's at a 41-year low. The sheriff's office jurisdiction, the unincorporated areas of the county, our crime rate, according to FDLE, is higher than any of the 5 neighboring counties.
I'm sure we will get into that further. Mr. Nocco, Sheriff Nocco, Mr. Bogart endorses accreditation. What's wrong with wanting your office to be measured by an absolute scale by an outside agency that's not tied to the outcome?
There's nothing. As I said the other night, our jail is nationally accredited. It's a great thing. The issue we have right now is resources. You know, it's nice that the property appraiser has $700,000 he's going to give the sheriff's office. We're looking forward to it. But the other side of it is, you know, when we have resources, how are you going to use them? What's your priority? If we wanted to reaccreditate law enforcement, we would have to utilize people for full time. Well, my priority right now is that we're going to fight crime. We're using best practices for general orders, for standing operator procedures, but right now, if you have one body in law enforcement, I'd rather them be out there in crime prevention or fighting crime, making a direct impact in the community. Accreditation is a nice thing, but it's not our priority. Fighting crime is.
Mr. Bogart, a minute.
The sheriff claims that it's going to take a sworn person, or in fact, the other night at a debate, he said that there would take 2 sworn people to manage the law enforcement accreditation process. The fact is many agencies around Florida are now using civilian personnel to manage that function, and it is important. That gives the agency an outside assessment of whether their policies and procedures are at the highest of levels. And there's confirmation that the employees know those policies and procedures. He has 2 public information officers and also now a media consultant. I think before I got a media consultant, I think I've been looking for someone who could handle risk management for the agency, which is so critical. We may not have things just even one lawsuit could really cripple the sheriff's office.
Thank you, Mr. Bogart. 30 seconds, Sheriff Nocco.
Even accredited agencies get sued and they lose lawsuits. If we had 2 people non-sworn, they'd be going to our IT staff right now because we need to upgrade technology to become more effective. That's what we're doing, and it's critical that we put people in key positions. The other side of it is, if you understand intelligence-led policing, you understand that crime prevention is critical. And that's the role of these people out there, is to get the message. I'd rather warn people about crime than have them become victims.
Mr. Bogart, 30 seconds.
Recently, there was a DUI checkpoint that went south. Accreditation has a standard that deals with DUI checkpoints. You are to ensure that you have a plan in place, that the employees are trained on that plan, and that they follow the plan. In this case, things went south, and it ends up that there's a potential for previous cases and future cases to be potentially jeopardized by that. Accreditation would have ensured that the folks were familiar with the plan. I'm sorry, my time's up.
Okay.
Mr. Bogart, there's already a lot of talk about resources. You mentioned an $86 million budget. That sounds like a lot, but it's not really, considering that a lot of the men and women with the office haven't received raises, pay increases in about 5 years. If the budget isn't increased, how do you plan on retaining those top-tier members of law enforcement?
Make no mistake about it, these deputies and the employees at the sheriff's office, they deserve raises. They have gone without raises not 5 years, but nearly 6 years. We have a mass exodus out of the agency. We've lost 125 in the last 4 years. And that doesn't include the ones that retired early, or just, we're talking about the ones that just left the agency. Some went to other jobs, but there's 44 working somewhere else in law enforcement. Many of them still live in Pasco County. There has to be a plan worked out with the county to start bringing a higher level of pay to these, not just the deputies, the civilian staff as well. I don't anticipate that that's going to change in the next year or 2. Employees leave an agency, in my history to know from being around, is they leave for one of 4 reasons. Leadership or the lack thereof, lack of opportunity for advancement, reputation of the agency, and lastly, pay. Most of these corrections deputies and law enforcement deputies didn't come to their professions because of the pay, but it is so far below the neighboring agencies that we have deputies lining up to take jobs in Tampa and Hillsborough and Pinellas. We have got to, as a community, find a way to get more pay for these deputies.
Sheriff, your rebuttal.
Yeah, actually, I just want to go back very briefly. That DUI checkpoint was headed up by the Florida Highway Patrol, and they're accredited. To go to the other point about to go back to resources, let's talk about the past year and a half. Sheriff White's not the sheriff anymore, I am. The past year and a half, our members have not been clean. We've lost a few, unfortunately, and it's purely because of salary. And as I said earlier, the saddest thing in the world is when a member says, I'm leaving only because of pay. That's something that we definitely have to work with the county commissioners on, because having good members leave that have been on the SWAT team, that have been fully trained, and are only leaving because of money, is something we're working on. But you're right, it's about leadership. It's about making sure that we have servant leaders, and that's why you see the people here tonight, and that's why I'm humbled by seeing so many members of our agency.
I don't know how we can say that we're still not having an exodus from the agency. I just mentioned that there were over 40 that have left since he took over as sheriff. And the latest information that I've been told, I have not verified, it said there's 17 more applications waiting down at the Tampa Police Department. It's not just about making a big unified SWAT team and those types of things that make people stay with this agency. It really has to be about developing, I'm sorry, my time is up.
Sheriff Nocco, I have heard from you often in some of our media briefings talk about intelligence-led policing. You brought it up yourself, but I've never actually got a hard definition of what that is and how you use it. Can you give that to us now and talk to me about how you plan to use that in the future?
Intelligence-led policing is a managerial philosophy that was created in the United Kingdom that uses geospatial modeling to define where you're going to place law enforcement officers and how to effectively fight crime. The way we have developed it is we have star areas in our county. We have 2 areas that are designated high crime areas. That's where we use our resources. In Pasco Sheriff's Office, it's called zone defense. You sit and wait for a call to happen. Today we're connecting the dots. There's 6% of criminals that commit 60% of crime. It's sharing information. It's about crime prevention. Crime prevention is critical to intelligence-led policing because we don't want people to become victims. So when you discuss intelligence-led policing, it's a proactive managerial philosophy. And that's why we're seeing the results we are today.
I would continue to disagree with the sheriff's results, given the crime statistics that I just said. Intelligence-led policing is a very, very good thing. It has been around for, as the sheriff said, about 10 years. There were degrees of it within this sheriff's office before now, and certainly that philosophy is now spread through the agency, and that's admirable. But intelligence-led policing is only one leg of a 3-legged stool for law enforcement. There's community-oriented policing, problem-oriented policing. These are all policing models that have been around for some time. It's really important that those 3 pieces work together well. In order to do that, one of the programs that I will be implementing is Sheriff's Advisory Councils. It's called SHADCO. And those are councils that are set up across the county to give regular feedback and collaborate with the Sheriff's Office to identify where those crime problems are. We think we know where it is, we can analyze all that data, but it's the people who live in those neighborhoods who know their neighborhoods the best, and it's important that we connect with them.
We're already doing that. We call them town hall meetings. You know, if you have an advisory council, the problem is you're talking to the same people all the time. We have town hall meetings where we go into the community and we listen to them. We go on Holiday, we go to Gate City, we've gone across the county. And it's critical because by sitting with the citizens, we get information. You know, where the problems are, and we're out there fixing them. And I always go back to the one down Holiday where they threw a block party because of the success. You know, you can measure statistics are one thing, and they're good and bad, they can flow. But for somebody to throw a block party, that's great.
Well, since that block party, there's been a homicide where a body was found there with bullet holes in it. I've spoken to a number of residents that live there, including my daughter, son-in-law, and my grandchildren. And I can tell you, having walked those neighborhoods, getting my petitions signed to run for sheriff, they don't feel safe down there. I know of one lady by the name of Nancy that used to walk her dog in her neighborhood, and this is just recent, I heard about this 2 days ago. Used to walk her dog in the neighborhood, but she's been confronted so often.
Go ahead. Finish your story, please.
Now she walks her dog in her front yard around a single tree because she's afraid.
All right. Mr. Bogart, I learned something fascinating the other night, and that is that you said the scenario that ended with Chris Nocco being appointed sheriff was arranged because Bob White believed he couldn't beat you in a rematch. Is that just rumor and scuttlebutt, or is there a smoking gun in there somewhere? I want to hear the evidence.
A few days after the 2010 election, I was operating a jail over in Osceola County when I received a phone call from a prominent member of the Republican Party that told me that a poll had been done and Bob White was included in that poll, and his popularity was so low that it was very unlikely that he would survive another election. And I was asked if I would change parties. I did not. I think that there,
Calm down. Calm down.
my opponent is part of a big political machine, as was his predecessor. And I think there's enough evidence of that to where I'm not going to back down from my statement. I truly believe what I said.
Sheriff Nocco.
You know, I don't know how to say this. There's really conspiracies people have when people say, I've gotten calls from people. Facts. Let's have facts. That's really what it's about, and I'm just doing the best job I can. I'm out there trying to make as much difference as possible, and we're going to see how it goes.
Mr. Bogart, 30 more seconds on this.
This is great. I've answered the question.
Very well. Sheriff Nocco, any more? All right. In that case, Sheriff Nocco, Mr. Bogart has specifically mentioned the rise of heroin as a low-cost alternative to other drugs. You have not addressed heroin in your literature or statements, but have described a more general drug abuse threat to Pasco County. Do you believe we risk a heroin epidemic in Pasco County? And if so, how does battling that differ from other drug crimes?
You know, right now, talking to our detectives, being out there, what we're actually seeing is, because we're doing such an outstanding job on the pills, is you're seeing the meth. You're seeing some heroin out there, we're seeing a lot of meth. So it's, you know, drugs is going to be an issue. We're going to fight it because of our detectives, because our deputies are doing a good job. But what you have to do is you have to start from the very beginning. It's education. Education to our kids, to give them opportunities. It's prevention. You know, in Celebrate Recovery, we have prevention programs. You're never going to be able to arrest yourself out of drugs. But what you do is build up a community. And it's also the fact when they're arrested, it's giving them opportunities. You know, when a drug addict commits a crime because of his addiction, you got to get them help. Because if they're released, all they're going to do is commit a crime again because of their addiction.
Mr. Bogart. And then.
Heroin is a problem heading this way. It is rampant in Georgia, especially in Atlanta. It's coming down the pipeline down I-4. All you have to do is go online to check and see what's going on in the Orlando area. It's coming this way. You're able to buy heroin, packets of heroin for about $8 to $10 in Atlanta now. It's the cheaper alternative. It's definitely coming. We may or may not be prepared to deal with it. Fighting it is going to be the same battle that the deputies and the detectives have been fighting before now. You can't arrest your way out of this problem. We have addiction issues in our county. It's widespread, and there need to be more treatment facilities, not just Celebrate Recovery and Narcotics Anonymous and those types of programs. There have to be recovery programs. Addiction is an illness, and they need to be lifelong solutions.
Sheriff Nocco, 30 seconds.
No, it's heroin is the same, you know, same type of drugs you're doing with an oxyroxy. You know, we're going to have drugs. You know, we had spice. We're still dealing with spice, and there's going to be another synthetic drug coming out there. You know, the chemists right now are constantly going to make new drugs. There's always going to be something new, but I keep going back to it's education, it's prevention, and it's working with the community to find solutions.
Mr. Bogart, 30 seconds.
It's enforcement, community education, and treatment option awareness. Only recently has a brochure been prepared that really kind of lays out a lot of the community treatment options that are available out there. People have different levels of resources. Some have no insurance, some have insurance. Some folks can go enroll in a program where the insurance will cover it. But we're not doing a good enough job at the sheriff's office we could actually play a role in that by distributing literature to the community to make the public more aware of it in our partnerships with NAMI and ASAP and the other drug-related organizations.
Thank you, Mr. Bogart. Ms. Cate. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Bogart, you have recently criticized the current sheriff's office's agricultural program some more about, or I guess elaborate on those criticisms, and talk to us about how you would do it better.
The return from the products that are produced at the farm, if you will, the cattle, the pork, the beef, and the produce, you total all that up, and there are all the numbers that have been, put out in the newspaper articles. There may be 20 or so trustees who go out and work that farm, and the money that goes into that, it doesn't offset it. They offset the cost of that program. There's the supervisors who have to be out there, the corrections deputies who have to monitor those inmates. Those salaries always seem to be missing in the equations. We have 1,300 inmates, anywhere from 12 to 1,300 inmates in that jail at any one time. There are other programs that could be going on in the jail that can actually teach those individuals, those inmates, life skills, to where when they get back into the community, they're better prepared to not return to jail. Some of those types of programs include anger management, disease prevention, reading skills, how to apply for a job, communication skills. Those are the types of things I would rather see our resources devoted to. Not see something that we take that inmate welfare fund, which is supposed to benefit all inmates, and focus it on a program that only benefits a few. I think the dollars could be better spent with other programs.
We have numerous programs that you just mentioned, so we already do those things. The other side of it is with agriculture. If you understand the jail, you don't know how long somebody's going to be there. It's not like prison when you have a sentence, and you could be there for 5 years, 10 years. In jail, sometimes you're there for a month, sometimes you're there for 6 months. It depends on what's going on in your process with the criminal justice system. But what we're teaching them is how to get out of bed and go to work. The fact that we can supplant the food back into our system, that's a good thing. It's also good the pork is going up, so we're saving a little bit more money. But it's one of those things where, as you're looking at a program, these people grew up without any type of life skills about getting out of bed, go to work. And the pride that they have by going out there, that's invaluable. Because that pride that they have may change their life.
These inmates didn't go to jail because they didn't know how to work or didn't know how to go. That's not the reason they're there. It's because they have other issues. When they walk in that door of the jail, if we did an assessment where we identify the specific needs of those inmates and make sure that while we have them in our care, custody, and control, we're making sure that it's an educational environment trying to help as much as possible. I'm not a hug-a-thug person. These people need to do the time for the crime that they have. I'm sorry, my time is up.
Sheriff Nocco, it came up during your opponent's opening, and it also came up during the primaries. Criticism on you for having a media consultant and PIOs too, during a time when the budget is in fact tight. Can you talk to us about the importance of having those positions today as technology becomes more and more prominent in the sheriff's office?
Yes. One of the worst criticisms of government is when citizens say, I don't know what's going on. One of the worst things we can do as a sheriff's office is have information about how to protect our citizens and not get it out there. That's why we have people out there who are doing public information to make sure it's out there. When there's a hurricane, we're the only public information officers that are doing the job. One of the biggest things out there is Facebook right now. We're getting messages out there. We're using technology. We're not going to be using a hammer and a stone and creating a wheel. We're out there right now staying up with technology. We're in the 21st century. Your sheriff's office is going to be progressive. We're going to be in the forefront. And to criticize us for being out there and for protecting our citizens and giving information, that's a criticism I'll gladly take.
I'm not criticizing the sheriff's office for failing to get information out there. I just question the need for 2 public information officers and a media consultant or a media person. To me, that salary and that position Might have, the sheriff was talking about adding staff to the analyst position for the intelligence-led policing. It seems to me that that may be more appropriate, and maybe those other public information officers have other things that they could be doing to pick up the slack for this, whatever this additional position is doing.
Yeah. I'd rather you keep this on me, not our members. Our members do an unbelievably good job. I'm so proud of every single one of them. And the fact that, if somebody can take a Facebook page and provide somebody information that can save their kid's life by telling them how to get help, we did our job. I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of all our members.
Mr. Bogart, 30 seconds.
I'm not attacking any member of the sheriff's office. I'm not attacking the sheriff personally. I'm just saying that the resources, you have to balance where the resources go. I just have a hard time grasping why there needs to be 3 public information related positions at that agency with the size that it is. There are other needs elsewhere in the agency.
Mr. Bogart, this will be familiar for you. Sheriff Nocco has endorsements from the Police Benevolent Association and the local chapter of the Fraternal Order of Police. This may be the first time in any public sector this may be the first time that any public sector union has favored a Republican in a general election in Pasco County. 4 years ago, when you challenged Bob White, you enjoyed the union's support. What accounts for the turnaround? If the deputies are happy, isn't that a sign not to change leadership?
The FOP did not contact me at all for an interview, for questionnaire, anything. They made their decision back before the primary. The FOP, when there was the election for that, it was held out at the Lodge in Land O'Lakes, there were 59 votes cast. And of those, the sheriff got the majority. There were a lot of unfamiliar faces out there at the Lodge, but I'm not going to use that as the excuse. It is what it is. That, I don't believe, is representative of the agency. There's a lot more deputies. That was a tiny piece of it. And the understanding I had is that whatever the deputies, or whatever the outcome was for the FOP, the firefighters were going to go along with it. So I have the greatest respect for the deputies as well as the firefighters. I would like to have had their endorsement and or recommendation, but I don't have that
Thank you.
from that organization.
Sheriff Nocco.
As I said, it's humbling to have their support. It's a great feeling to know that the people you serve with side by side support you. And because you hear so often about morale, you hear so often, how people are feeling out there, and it's important. The success of the agency comes through our members, all of them, and that's why it's great. It's also a good feeling that we're working well together. The worst thing that can destroy any agency is the rumor mill. It's people making things up without facts, and just throwing it out there. It's great when we can call each other up and say, hey, you heard this? Yeah, this is the truth. Okay, let me take care of it. We have a great working relationship. We're all working together as one, and I'm very, very humbled to have their support.
Mr. Bogart, 30 more seconds.
I have answered the question.
All right.
Sheriff Nocco, you have been poked pretty good here on the crime rate on Pasco County, especially the fact that there has been a spike year over year, at least over the first 6 months, in sexual assaults in Pasco County. How concerned are you about where those statistics are leading, and what do you have to say about that?
Sexual offenses are absolutely horrendous. We're actually, next week, we're having a symposium because it's domestic violence month. We want to get out there in the forefront, talk about self-defense, trying to empower women, and we're going to try to talk to them. The saddest part about a lot of sexual offenses is that the suspect is known to the victim. And so what we're trying to do is get out there to empower women, talk to them about, protecting themselves. It's a horrific crime. But for us, we realize our key component right now is education, crime prevention, and talking to women to empower them, to teach them how to protect themselves.
Mr. Bogart, minute?
There's no doubt that that is probably one of the most horrendous crimes that there is. I was involved in the section of helping to get the Sunrise Substance Abuse Task Force, or Substance Abuse Shelter, set up when it first came to Pasco County. I was part of that task force, and that was many years ago. It is about community awareness, certainly prosecuting, finding the perpetrators and prosecuting them without delay, empowering the women to know that they can do something about it. It's true, what the sheriff said, many times it is someone that the victim knows, which is the saddest part of it. It's one of those crimes that's almost impossible for law enforcement to, you don't catch it in the act, it's afterwards. We just have this responsibility to make the women know, and men for that matter, know that there are places that they can go for actually help and support.
Sheriff Nocco, 30 seconds.
Yes, just want to, if there's any women out there, anybody we could help to, we want to protect them. One of our greatest assets in the sheriff's office is our victim advocates, because we know how hard it is for a woman to go through the prosecution side in the criminal justice system. And like Sunrise, like the Salvation Army, we want to be with them every step of the way, because those who commit the offense need to do the time.
Mr. Bogart, 30 more seconds on that.
Actually, the Victim Advocate Program for the Pasco County Sheriff's Office began under my watch many years ago. I'm a big proponent of it, and I think that there was and always will be an incredible need for that. And the victim advocates themselves, I think they are incredible individuals that give that really needed support as the victim makes her way through everything from the exam at the hospital all the way through the prosecution. I think it's one of the biggest things that the Sheriff's Office offers.
Thank you. Ms. Katie.
Mr. Bogart, you've talked about the Sheriff Nocco using his political ties to get funding for the agency. We just talked about $1 million going to CPI, and you mentioned that you didn't need political connections, or you shouldn't need them, to get the legislature to fork over that money. Talk about how you plan to approach the legislature and get that grant money, and if you do, what programs within the agency would you put that funding towards?
I've not identified specific programs that I would need the legislature's help at this point to do. There are programs that I would seek grant funding for, such as a reentry program for the jail, and there are federal grants available for that. And President Bush signed into law in 2000, and gosh, I just don't recall the year, but there's actually a grant that's being used around the country to implement those types of programs, and I would be actively pursuing that to fund that. But as far as if there were a program that was specifically identified that took legislative funding, I have no doubt that our good elected legislators that are responsible for our area would not be making the decision whether or not to support our sheriff's office based on partisanship.
Your rebuttal?
The programs we're looking at is we're going to make sure our child protection investigation unit, that their funding maintains, and that we stay on par, with Hillsborough and Pinellas. The other side of it is we're going to go back again this year and ask for grant dollars for ASAP, for Baycare, behavioral health. We want to make sure that we keep fighting the drug epidemic. As I said earlier, there's going to be another drug on the market. We're always going to hear about something new out there. We want to go up there and use state dollars to help us in Pasco County. We send money to Tallahassee, it should be sent back here. So we're going to make sure we get our share. And I'm proud that we're on the forefront of that. And we're going to continue to be.
Your rebuttal?
I have not.
Anything else, Sheriff?
Good to go.
My question for you then, Sheriff Nocco, you just mentioned new drugs. There's always going to be a new drug. There's been a lot of focus, particularly since this summer when we've seen those spice lab explosions. We've had a lot of incidents, and that seems to be a big focus of your office now. Just had a news conference this morning with your office in the county putting the spice billboards up. Your office, as well as the county, is working on an ordinance. But it can't be forgotten that there's still a pill epidemic going on in this county. How are you going to address that from here on if elected?
The pill epidemic?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, we were very fortunate that last year our county commissioners, we worked together. And it was probably the first time in a long time that we all were united in the cause. We have a major epidemic out there. We were able to get 2 new squads in Vice Narcotics Unit to fight the pills. And they have been doing a great job. And their success is the fact that you can see the amount of pills, the price of a pill has gone up. You know, that is a show that, you know, the amount on the market has gone down. But we know there's a lot more out there. And it's not just us alone. You know, we're using unique things. We're working with the DEA, we're a partnership. We have a partnership with the IRS. You know, we're going after these bad doctors. We're going after their money. We're going to hit them where it hurts. That's one of the major things we're doing right now. It's also about working with our community on the prevention side with, you know, Calvary Worship Chapel. It's called 7. It's crime prevention for our 7th and 8th graders, giving them education about drugs, not to use them. That's so powerful. But as I keep going back to it, it's about education, any type of drug. Education is so critical, hitting these kids early and talking to them. It's about the enforcement, that we're going out there and kicking down doors. That's a good thing. We're going after these bad doctors. We're going to take their money, and we're going to use it against them. And then the other side is working with our community, getting people help. It's destroying families. Our Child Protection Investigation Unit, it's horrific when they see an infant inside the house, crawling on the floor, and boyfriend and girlfriend are passed out with pills all around them. It's a holistic view we have to take on, and I'm so proud that we're doing a good job of that.
The drug problem in Pasco County, it's been well reported and where we rank in the state and how our state ranks in the nation. It's across the board. It's in Pasco County, you can throw a rock and hit a drug dealer. We have to keep aggressive enforcement. The additional deputies that have been assigned to the sheriff's office, they will keep their nose to the ground and aggressively go after the drug abusers. My daughter is a delivery nurse, and the stories that she's told me, certainly honoring HIPAA and all that, without names, but just stories of the babies that are being born that are addicted and how long they have to stay in the hospital. It's horrible. It will bring tears to your eyes. We have to keep educating the youngsters in the school, but even more importantly, we need to educate the parents on how to talk to their kids, and there are programs for that, and that's one of the things that I would be encouraging, would be programs where we educate the parents so that they can really connect with the kids and maybe do some prevention that way.
Sure, Nocco.
There's another side of drugs and the violence and crime, and I keep coming back. I'm so proud of our members, our SWAT team, taking people out, arresting them, sending a clear message. It's pills, drugs, have created a lot of mental illnesses that are destroying families. And one of the things that we're working on is that we've already in the past year got a lot of members trained to deal with those people dealing with mental illness. In the next 2 years, we hope to have the whole agency trained. So it's one of our goals because it's so critical to help people out there.
Mr. Bogart, 30 more seconds.
It's just something that we absolutely cannot slow down on, and education is one of the main ingredients that has to be addressed, and we need to devote more resources to it. We don't have a lot of spare resources, but is that important? We're going to pay up front, or we're going to pay at the back with this problem, and across the board, through the state, through the legislature, to our county government, we need to have more programs to address these problems.
Mr. Bogart, last question apparently. This was on the minds of the folks over at Timber Greens the other night, and so I think it's appropriate to ask it now. Should the Sheriff's Office actively pursue taking over law enforcement duties in Pasco cities that continue to operate independent police forces despite their budget constraints? What's the upside to that?
I want to make sure I understand the question. The upside to consolidation?
Yes.
I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon to say that it's the best thing to do. I think each community needs to decide that for themselves. I travel a lot. I have traveled up until December 31st of last year when I quit my consulting work. But I've been in many communities, many departments where those cities would never give up their departments because it gives them a sense of identity. And the departments wouldn't want to merge with the sheriff's office. But as you know, down in Pinellas County, many of those local communities, the beach communities, are now patrolled by the sheriff's office. Resources are tight. I think the decision needs to be made by the city councils whether or not they want to do that. There may be portions of what they do that they may want to have the sheriff's office take over. If there was consolidated communication services, maybe that would work out for them and help them in some respect. But if I were approached, if I were sheriff and I were approached about that idea, I certainly would be open to it. But I'm not going to push to have it happen because I don't think that's what a sheriff's role should be.
Sheriff Nocco, a minute.
It is up to the citizens of the community. They pay for those services. However, there becomes a time, as everybody knows, when financial situations are so critical, you may lose everything. And that's where it comes down to the fact that you, by allowing resources to come to the sheriff's office, you can maintain the same level of service. And I think right now, with our Pasco Sheriff's Office, we're doing a great job of working as a partner with our local communities. We have a merged SWAT team. We share resources with detectives. The critical piece that was just brought up, which is good, is we talked about consolidated communication. We're doing that right now at the county. We're working on a plan. And I can tell you how critical it is 2 days ago, while I was working, I hear a Newport Richey, one of our deputies is going after, sees a Newport Richey police officer running code, and he says, there's something going on, I'm going to make sure he's okay. Well, the sad part is we can't talk to each other. In the future, we should be, because it's a safety issue, not just for our members, but for the whole community.
Mr. Bogart, 30 seconds.
For 10 years, I worked as a part-time deputy with the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office across the state. It was while I lived here, but I would travel over there regularly. Their communications center is county-run, and it handles all of the police departments in the area, as well as the sheriff's office. It runs very well. It's all the advantages that the sheriff was just speaking about. Merging, so I see the benefits of that, and I recognize it. It's really up to those cities to make that decision. As far as having the merged SWAT teams, that has been done for decades around the country. I don't know why our sheriff's office hasn't done that before now, because it does make sense. It did cost a few dollars, but it did come out of forfeiture money in order to outfit those SWAT team members that are from the city. But, I'm sorry, I ran out of time.
Sheriff Nocco? 35, 40, 45 seconds.
You're talking about my 40 time?
No. Final rebuttal.
We are doing good things. That merge SWAT team was a great idea that our members came up with, and it's all of us working together. And make no mistake about it, the members of law enforcement, it doesn't matter what uniform you wear in Pasco County, are doing an outstanding job. Criminals know no boundaries, neither should law enforcement. That's why we're working together. That's why we share information. That's why you're seeing, successes by agencies working together.
All right, good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's move on now to closing statements. Sheriff Nocco, you go first, 90 seconds.
I went first. Does he go? The coin toss? I go first? Oh, okay. I'm good.
Good.
Yeah. Well, there's rules here. I'll follow the rules.
You don't get to go first and last. Come on.
I just said the rules are here. I appreciate it. I appreciate this. This is the last and final debate. And throughout this campaign, it's been great. I want to thank our members, all our support. That's really what it's all about. The one good thing is, we have a plan. We have a strategic plan. If everybody wants to look it up, you can see where we're headed. That's really what these debates, that's really what campaigns and your choice is all about. Choosing what you like, choosing what direction you want to go in. You know, the Pasco Sheriff's Office, we have a plan, we see the direction. The past year and a half, if it was a fluke, bad things will be happening every day. It's not a fluke. It's because of all of us working together. It's listening to one another. It's sharing information. And you know what? As a community, we're changing. That's a good thing. I think people can feel out there, Pasco County is changing for the better. And I'm proud that the Sheriff's Star is leading that way. I'm proud that we're making a difference and touching lives. So again, I just thank everybody. I want to thank the good Lord up there, because I know He's looking down upon us, and I ask that He keeps blessing us, because we have been blessed. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bogart, 90 seconds.
Pasco County has been my home for 28 years. My wife Trish is a veterinarian here, and she has her practice here. My daughter Olivia, my son-in-law Jeff, my grandchildren, they all live here. I'm committed to this county. I'm not going anywhere. I've got a long history of service to our community, to the community service organization, and presently serve as a board member for Leadership Pasco, West Pasco Habitat for Humanity, Coalition for the Homeless, Premier Healthcare Services, and others. I have a long history of commitment. I'm involved with those organizations because I want to make Pasco better. I want to be sheriff because I want to make it safer. Folks aren't as safe as my opponent would like you to believe them to be. I'm a hard data kind of person. I look at the numbers too. I want measurable results. I'm not just going to tell people that we're safer in Pasco County and say it often enough to where people believe that, when in fact it's not really true. I want to give them not a wish list, a strategic plan that hasn't even factored in all the things that really need to be in a strategic plan. I want to give them annual reports that tell you all of the things that we've done in that sheriff's office with your dollars so that there are measurable results. I'm asking for your vote on November 6th to be able to bring